what I wanted to present a little bit in a nutshell was about why we're talking about revenue, in my view, what is important about it, how it relates to your product or to your offering and how innovative it is. I'll touch upon the revenue models, but since Deshan already delved quite a lot into that, I might make this a little bit shorter. I've got one slide about revenue milestones as well. So to show how revenue milestones are articulated versus your product and your model. And that's about it. I've listed on the slide some of the documents that I've used. So two big sources. Dublin is an institute in Chicago that focuses on innovation. And I'm just going to present a little bit the framework there and how it relates to revenue. And I've used the revenue milestones described by Manu Kumar. Manu Kumar is a venture capitalist who notably invested in Lyft, I think, the big competitor to Uber. So about the importance of revenue, that's, for me, that relates to the criterion to determine the success of a startup. Many entrepreneurs, or wannabe entrepreneurs, are going to focus a lot on their ID, and how innovative or disruptive their ID is. Is that the main driver for a successful startup? I don't think it's completely true. I think it's only half of the truth. We very often oppose execution and the quality of the ID. They've got to work hand in hand, and that's what we're going to go through. So first, an innovative ID per se, no matter how great it is, it has zero value. It has no value. An ID has no value. You can't sell it to anybody. Nobody's going to give you money for an ID. You can have the ID behind Amazon, an enormous marketplace where you can trade all the goods and so on, with some automated warehouses around the world for the logistics and so on. If it's just an ID, it has zero value. When you talk about an ID, you've got to determine how great it is. So you've got to somehow rate it as well. So that's where we're going to see a little bit on the next slide what makes a great ID. And so Dublin uses 10 types of innovation. We're going to go through that. And you're going to see that then it makes for more than just an ID. Then the next aspect is indeed the quality of execution. It's a great execution that's going to transform a great ID into a very successful business. If you don't have the great execution, you just have the ID, it has no value. And where revenue kicks in is that it's probably the best metric we've got. It's not the only one, it's not complete, but it's a very good metric to measure the quality of execution of your venture. So what you need for a very successful venture is a truly innovative ID combined with a revenue generating execution. So how innovation relates to revenue? Dublin defines 10 types of innovation. There's quite a lot of information actually on the website. It's for free, so I encourage you to go and check it on dublin.com. So that institute defined 10 types of innovation. There's profit model, network, structure, process. That's all about your company. Product performance, product system. That's all about your service. And then, your offering. And then service, channel, so that distribution channels, brand, and customer engagement. That's about the experience of people who basically use your offering. So the very first type of innovation is profit model. What they call profit model is revenue model. It's the first one. That's where you can actually start innovating. Dublin in their theory says that to have a truly innovative idea, you need to actually tick some boxes in at the very least 3 types of innovation. So I'll give you an example. Netflix today. What is the great idea of Netflix? Is it that you can stream video content? Not really. I mean, YouTube can do that. You already had some other options for that. But so you can stream very high quality content. It's one aspect. It's only one type of innovation. It's not enough. Is it the width of their offering by the way that they actually co-produce or stamp existing productions and add them to the catalog using a revenue share model? That's one type of innovation. Another type of innovation is directly the revenue model itself. It's a subscription model. You don't pay for what you're watching. You're paying to access the content, no matter if you watch 0 minutes of Netflix this month or if you watch 24 hours a day for the entire month. So you combine different types of innovation to make a great idea. And again, profit model or revenue model is one type of innovation. Revenue models themselves, so one type of innovation, that's what Deschamps delved into. And indeed, there are many. So here I listed the ones from Growthwheel. Dublin also has some, but you can find a lot of resources online for that as well, if you want to get some ideas. Typically here, for online revenue models, for example, you can generate leads and resell those leads. You can sell stuff on the internet. You can make affiliate marketing. So you're advertising someone else's products. Whenever they get a transaction, you get a commission fee for that. Trade revenue, that's subscription or consignment models, for example. So there is a lot of different revenue models that you can use, and that can be part of a great idea, of a great concept. Revenue milestones. So that's where using those milestones, or using milestones in general, using a plan to rate your progress, can give a very strong indication of your quality of execution. In other words, by showing revenue, you're letting other people know, especially investors or prospective investors, how well you execute. So you don't not only have an idea, you're executing very well on that. So Kumar described those steps as I find them very interesting. You can discuss the figures, especially since those are dollar figures, so they apply maybe more to US ventures. But the figures are actually not necessarily off, even in an African context. So when you generate $0 a month, well, you've got only an idea, so you need to start building. You start building a team, you start building your product, your offering. When you, so think of a product as something that you're selling for $100 unit, for example. So once you've sold 10 units in a month, 10 subscriptions or 10 products, you're making $1,000 a month. So you're selling 10 a month, it's something. So you've proven that some people are ready to give you money for what you're offering. So what do you do there? You start adjusting the product to what people actually want, because you started getting some questions from the people. You started missing sales because people wanted something a bit different. So you start adjusting your offering to try and sell more using whatever channel of distribution you've got. And then you start selling more. And instead of 10 units a month, you're selling 100 units a month. So you're making $10,000 a month. There, you can actually start really changing your offering or going into some other segments of the market, because you start having enough information and a little bit of cash. You start also customizing the ways that you acquire customers. You change them. You adjust your channels of distribution, your marketing. You can still do that by being alone or with just one business partner. And if you do that, you're going to continue growing. So the next milestones is around shipping 1,000 units every month. And now there is a real risk at that stage. You're making about $100,000 a month. What happens there? And I know from experience, I've had 2 of my ventures getting stuck there. So you get stuck. Because at that kind of revenue, usually you can employ some people and you're already a small business. And you actually, as a founder, you want to breathe. You want to take a break because you're exhausted. You've been working on this for like 12 or 18 months. You're there. $100,000 a month, or like $1.5 million a month, is not bad. It's not nothing in terms of revenue. And you want to take a breeze and you hire some people and you get stuck. Because it's very easy to get stuck and to get a bit too comfortable once you've got a team of 5 or 10 people doing the work for you. And in the life of a startup, if you get stuck, your investors are not going to be very happy, and you're not going to reach real profitability. You're not going to continue executing very well. You're not going to scale up. What you've got to do at that moment, you mustn't get complacent. It's not a question as a founder of beating yourself up, but you mustn't get complacent. You've got to rework the product market fit, basically develop more product or more offering, a broader offering. Continue working on the sales customer acquisition fit. And very importantly, you've got to measure your growth, not your revenue, but how much you're growing month on month. Because if you're just adding $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month of incremental sales at that moment, you're stalled. You're not growing anymore. That was great at the very beginning, but you've got to continue growing in a double-digit percentage month over month. Otherwise, you're going to miss the next stage. You're going to miss the next step. What Kuma put there is $250,000 to $500,000 a month. That's very different from $100,000 a month. It necessitates to triple, quadruple, or quintuple compared to where you were. You've got to work towards that. And you've got to work towards that because that's the next round of fundraising. That's where you can actually rake in some big money. And then you're going to be able to make some very big investment actually to continue scaling up. So it's just a word of warning. Don't get stuck at that $100,000 a month type of scale or 5 to 10 people team, basically. The last step that he described, $1 million a month, like $10, $12 million a year of revenue and rolling revenue. That's great. That's you're already in probably between Series A and Series B of investment. Then it becomes, it's not a seed phase anymore. It's a growth phase. Some other people are going to be advising you for that. It's a little bit of a different ball game. So this is about the revenue milestones. I'd like to finish with just a few remarks, what I call things to consider. So no particular order there. Cash is king. So when we talk about revenue, we're not talking about profit. We know that you're not profitable yet, but we're talking about cash revenue. This is very important, especially in fintech. We're not talking about your books. How much money are you cashing in the bank? Okay, what the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is a bank account there. Another remark is that revenue, it's a very good metric for quality of the execution. In other words, from an investor's point of view, it's a good metric for credibility. If you're making actual cash, you're credible. Otherwise, all you've got is an ID. No matter how many great features you're describing, you show cash, you show revenue, you're credible. Even if it's not much, but it does mean that there are people who are willing to pay you for a service or for a product. So you're bringing some value to some people and they're actually paying for that. Another remark, testing is very important, including how and when people actually pay you. This relates to the revenue model. You might have to test out things because sometimes people are not willing to pay you at certain stages, or you're trying to make people pay and they're the wrong people. And someone else should be paying. Testing could be important there. In the Netflix model, for example, what is very remarkable is that the user is paying and not the advertiser. And that's quite different from what we had before, you know, in the media. Another remark is that revenue is only one side of the coin, cost is the other. Deshan dwelled into that. Just to mention, so you've got to determine the unit economics that makes sense for your business model. You've got to test and measure it. And using the outcome of those tests, you're going to be able to build a real financial model. You don't need to go further than 12, sometimes 24 months. Everybody then in the industry is going to know that further than that, it's just not real. But the 12-month model is actually very important. And whenever there is actually a change, you need to update your model. Don't be shy of doing that. A change in the costing, a change in the revenue, because you change a little bit the revenue model. Update your model. No investor is going to get upset with you because you're updating your model, your revenue model, your business plan to reflect what's happening. Then the last remark is the holy grail in whatever venture is always recurring revenue. When you can show that your venture is generating recurring revenue from certain clients, this has an enormous amount of value actually, because it gives a lot of credibility to your future projections. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olivier.